the 10th of April, 2026. 4 astronauts splash down in the Pacific Ocean. They have just spent 10 days farther from Earth than any human in half a century. They wave, they smile, they look fine. But fine is a lie. Inside their bodies, a quiet war has been running since hour one. Their hearts have shrunk. Their bones have started to dissolve. 2 liters of blood have abandoned their legs and flooded their heads. Their eyes have begun to flatten. Their muscles have forgotten what gravity feels like. Everything you are about to hear, every change, every breakdown, every silent scream of the human body, happened in just 10 days, not a year, not a Mars mission. 10 days. This is the story of Artemis II. It is a warning about what happens when you take the most fragile machine in the universe, the human body, and throw it into the most hostile environment it has ever faced. For 3 of these astronauts, it was their first time. For their bodies, it did not matter. The moment the Space Launch System engines cut off and the crew reached orbit, gravity stopped pulling. On Earth, gravity keeps about 2 liters of blood and other fluids settled in your legs like water at the bottom of a glass. Remove gravity, and that water has nowhere to go but up. Within hours, the face swells, the sinuses clog, the legs thin out. Astronauts have a darkly funny name for this: puffy face, chicken legs by day 3. If you saw a photo of an Artemis II astronaut next to their official crew portrait, you would think they were sick. They are not sick. Their bodies are doing exactly what they are built to do: adapt. But here is the trap. The environment is lying to them. And the first organ to fall for the lie is the heart. Your heart is an engineering marvel that evolved over hundreds of millions of years to solve one problem: pumping blood uphill against gravity. Your arteries, your veins, your leg muscles, everything is calibrated to fight gravity every second. Take gravity away, and the system does not break, it recalibrates. Suddenly, your heart has no hill to climb, so it does the logical thing. It shrinks, not from disease, from efficiency. A smaller heart is all you need when there is no resistance. Your body, in its ruthless pragmatism, starts downsizing the one organ you cannot afford to lose. On a 10-day mission like Artemis II, the shrinkage is measurable, but modest. On a 6-month mission aboard the ISS, it becomes a serious medical concern. But the real danger is not in space, it is on the ground. When that shrunken heart suddenly has to pump against full Earth gravity again during re-entry. After splashdown, it struggles. That is why recovery teams were waiting in the Pacific. The crew was not walking off that helicopter unaided, and the heart is just the beginning. Most people think bone is dead like drywall or scaffolding. It is not. Bone is living tissue, constantly being torn down and rebuilt by 2 rival teams of cells. Osteoclasts, the demolition crew, dissolve old bone. Osteoblasts, the builders, lay down new bone. On Earth, gravity keeps them balanced. Every time you stand, walk, or climb stairs, the weight of your body tells your bones, stay dense, or you will shatter in microgravity. That signal vanishes. The demolition crew keeps working at full speed, but the builders go on strike. No demand, no construction. The result is 1 to 1.5% bone mineral density loss per month, concentrated in your hips, spine, and legs. That rate is equivalent to what a postmenopausal woman with osteoporosis loses in an entire year on Earth, compressed into 30 days. On the ISS, astronauts exercise 2 hours daily to fight this. The Artemis II crew had a flywheel device rowing, squats, deadlifts inside a capsule the size of a camper van. 2 hours of structured exercise in a van with 3 other people. While floating is not the same as a gym, 10 days is not long enough for catastrophic bone loss. But measurable changes begin within 72 hours, and all of this happens under a constant, invisible assault that the ISS astronauts are largely protected from. The International Space Station orbits inside Earth's magnetosphere, a magnetic bubble that deflects most high-energy particles from the Sun and deep space. It is not perfect, but it is substantial. Artemis II left that bubble. They flew through the Van Allen radiation belts twice, once on the way out, once on the way back. These are regions where trapped electrons and protons swirl at tremendous energies. For the days between Earth and the Moon, they were exposed to the full deep space radiation environment. Galactic cosmic rays, solar particles, with nothing between them and those particles but the aluminum and composite walls of the Orion capsule. A single heavy ion, like an iron atom, stripped naked and fired at near light speed, can tear through a cell like a bullet through paper. It shreds DNA in ways the cells repair machinery, struggles to fix cleanly. Sometimes the cell survives with errors in its genetic code. Those errors accumulate over time into something worse. The total dose for the 10-day mission was modest, roughly equivalent to a full-body CT scan for a single mission. That is manageable. But a Mars mission would take about 3 years round trip. 3 years of this. Every day. No magnetosphere. No protection. That is why NASA flew a very unusual experiment alongside the crew. They sent their own living cells, grown into human bone marrow, on the same journey. What happened to those chips is a preview of what would happen to us on a longer flight. Muscle atrophy begins fast. Without gravity to resist, the muscles in your legs and lower back, the ones that keep you upright, all day start to wither. Astronauts on longer missions can lose up to 20% of their muscle mass in as little as 5 to 11 days. And it is not just about size. The type of muscle fiber changes. Slow twitch endurance, fibers the ones that keep you standing, begin converting to fast twitch fibers. Your body is literally rewriting its own hardware for an environment where endurance does not matter and quick bursts do. Practical for floating through a spacecraft, terrible for walking on Earth. Then there are the eyes. Roughly a third of astronauts on long-duration IS missions develop a condition called spaceflight, associated neuroocular syndrome, SANS. The fluid that floods your head does not just puff up your face. It increases intracranial pressure, the pressure of cerebrospinal fluid inside your skull. That pressure pushes on the back of your eyeballs, flattening them slightly, swelling the optic nerve. Some astronauts who had perfect vision their entire lives suddenly need reading glasses in space. Some experience changes that persist for months or even years after landing. For a 10-day mission, full-blown SANS is unlikely, but the fluid shift is immediate, and the pressure increase begins on day 1, when Orion hits the upper atmosphere at roughly 25,000 miles per hour. The crew experiences a 6-minute communications blackout. Plasma forms around the capsule during peak heating. The heat shield, a subject of intense debate before launch after issues discovered during Artemis I, absorbs temperatures that would melt steel while the crew sits just meters behind it. They endure up to 9 Gs during re-entry, nearly 4 times the force of gravity, pressing them into their seats. For bodies that have spent 10 days without any gravitational load, the transition is violent. Imagine spending 10 days floating in a warm pool, weightless. Your muscles relaxed, your heart eased off, your entire circulatory system resettled. Now imagine someone strapping you to a chair and dropping you from a cliff. That is an exaggeration, but the physiological whiplash is real. The heart has to pump harder than it has in over a week. Blood that had been floating freely in the upper body suddenly crashes back down into the legs. The vestibular system, your balance organs, spent 10 days with no reliable gravitational reference. Now it is suddenly overwhelmed with input. About half of all first-time space travelers experience severe motion sickness in orbit. The return can be just as disorienting. Standing up after splashdown without assistance is difficult. The recovery team extracted the crew, transferred them to an inflatable raft, and helicoptered them to the USS John P. Mirtha. Post-mission medical evaluations began immediately. The crew will spend weeks in post-flight, reconditioning. Their muscles need to relearn how to fight gravity. Their cardiovascular systems need to readjust to pumping blood uphill. Their bones need the mechanical stress of walking to signal the builders to start rebuilding. 4 people, 10 days, a capsule the size of a camper van. No privacy, no escape, the constant hum of life support systems. The knowledge that you are farther from home than any human has ever been. Jeremy Hansen had spent a week living deep underground in an Italian cave as preparation. That helped with the confinement. It could not prepare him for the radiation. In a post-mission interview, he admitted, "There were moments I looked out the window and thought if something goes wrong now, nobody is coming." Christina Koch knows what microgravity does to a body over months. She spent 328 days on the ISS, the longest single spaceflight by a woman at the time. For her, Artemis II was a sprint. For the others, it was their first time experiencing what it feels like when your own biology turns against the environment you chose. The crew participated in an immune biomarkers investigation, blotting saliva onto specialized paper booklets. Those samples will reveal whether deep space conditions reactivated dormant viruses in their system. Spaceflight suppresses the immune system. Astronauts get sick more easily. Their wounds heal more slowly. Viruses that have been dormant for years sometimes wake up. Sleep quality is not a given. The absence of a natural day-night cycle, the constant hum of fans and pumps, the knowledge that the nearest hospital is 250,000 miles away. About 70% of astronauts report headaches in space, even those who never get them on Earth. NASA's chief scientist for human research describes the overarching hazards of spaceflight with a single acronym: RIDGE, radiation, isolation, distance from Earth, gravity, environment. Every one of these hazards was present during Artemis II, and every one of them left a mark. Now, let us do the math for Mars. A 3-year round trip, bone loss alone, 1 to 1.5% per m-onth. 18 months of that means an astronaut arriving at Mars could have lost a quarter of their hip bone density. Fracture risk on Mars, where gravity is only 38% of Earth's, would be terrifying. Radiation exposure would accumulate far beyond the CT scan equivalent of a lunar flyby. Galactic cosmic rays do not stop. They do not take days off, and there is no magnetosphere between Earth and Mars. That is why the Avatar experiment matters. If scientists can identify the molecular changes that 10 days of deep space caused in personalized bone marrow models, they can begin predicting what 30 days would do, what 90 days would do, what 3 years would do, what 3 years would do, and more importantly, they can start designing countermeasures. Drugs, supplements, shielding strategies, exercise protocols, tailored to each astronaut's individual biology. We sent 4 people to the moon and brought them back changed. The question that Artemis II was really asking, the question that all those experiments, all those saliva booklets, all those tiny bone marrow chips were designed to answer, is whether we can send people much farther for much longer and still bring them back whole. What returned to Earth on the 10th of April, 2026, were 4 people who looked from the outside mostly like themselves, a little puffy, a little unsteady, smiling in their orange survival suits as they were pulled from the water. But beneath the surface, at the level of cells and fluids and bone mineral density and gene expression and cardiovascular tone, they were measurably, quantifiably different from the 4 people who had launched 10 days earlier. We sent them to the moon and we brought them back. But we did not bring back the same people. Their bodies were rewritten by space. The data from this mission will not provide a final answer. It will provide a first draft. And in that first draft, written in the biology of 4 astronauts who spent 10 days in the most hostile environment any human has entered in over 50 years, we might find the beginning of a map for everything that comes next. Because make no mistake, we are going back to the moon. We are going to Mars. We are going to push farther into the solar system than we have ever dreamed. But every step of that journey will be written in blood, bone, and breath. The question is not whether we can survive deep space. The question is whether we can learn to listen to what our bodies are telling us before it is too late. They came home. They are recovering. And soon they will be ready to fly again. Because that is what explorers do. They adapt, they overcome, they rewrite themselves. If you made it this far, you are exactly the kind of curious mind this channel is built for. Space is not just about rockets and planets. It is about us. What we are made of, what we can become. Subscribe if you want to understand what space does to us, not just to rockets. Because the next 10 years will rewrite us all. Do not miss it. And if this video made you feel something hit-like, it tells YouTube to show this to more people who need to hear it. What would you risk for a journey to Mars? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. I will see you in the next one, because the universe is not waiting. Neither am I.